get in trouble.
Okay.
Okay, we
don't have a microphone.
Take off your mask.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
We're not supposed to take our masks off. But
Look this way, thanks. Great.
thank you.
Yay.
So here's our guy, Steve.
First thing I gotta say is working with these guys from just the day on the set to all the other things we've done together is your thankfulness and your genuine love for the project and love for the people and taking care of the people that are involved is astounding. I mean, I've worked on a lot of big sets, and this was the warmest, most giving, most generous people I've ever worked with. Yeah. And
you're very kind.
That's very true.
Thanks, Steve.
But we have a few things. What inspired you to create The Disappointments?
So The Disappointments came out of a conversation that James and I had with a group of people at dinner. Merrick's drinking margaritas.
A lot of margaritas.
More than one pitcher. It was probably 17 years ago. It was quite a long time ago, 15 years ago. And we were commenting. A friend of ours had recently committed suicide. And so we were there talking about it, but we then started thinking about some other people who had recently done the same. It's in the second episode, we talk about that a little bit. And it was just this thing we were thinking about, like how some people just sort of reach a certain age, they were getting into their 40s or into their 50s, and they kind of were losing hope, you know? And in some cases there might have been some drug abuse involved or whatever, but like whatever it is that people turn to when they're unhappy, you know, these people unfortunately took a very tragic turn. But on the flip side of that, there are people who we knew who would, whose careers weren't working out, if they were actors or dancers or producers or whatever the case may be, and they chose instead to reinvent themselves. They did become therapists or real estate agents, or you know, whatever, and became successful. And we just sort of like were kind of marveling at the two options that people would take, or also the people who just continue, they stay on their path. And that was the initial kernel, and it took me some time to come back around to it, but that stuck with me. And that's what the original seed was.
Nothing disappointing up there tonight.
Thank you.
And you're primarily known for your writing in television and film, and what made you do the acting and directing? And
well, I wrote it as a pilot. The first 2 episodes is what I originally wrote, and I was going to try to sell it. And then I was dragged by Chuck Sekula, who plays Ignacio, the real estate agent in the scene with James. He dragged me to a screening of a web series called The New 30. It was the premiere of it. And I was like, all right, Chuck, I'll go with you, but you know, we have to sit in the back, and as soon as your episode is over, we're leaving. But from the moment it started, it was so good. The writing was good, the directing, the look, like the money was up there, even though it turns out he did it for very little, like we did. And it just gave me this idea of like, no one's gonna make this pilot, but I wanna make this show. So I spoke with Walt afterwards, and he was very, very generous, which interestingly, a lot of people who've made their own web series are really willing to talk to and help people who want to make web series. It's like I'm that way. It's a camaraderie thing. Walt, so I owe a lot to Walt Bost. Check out The New 30. It's on, what's it on, David? YouTube. It's on the YouTubes. What was the question?
I'm getting into an acting. And
it was sort of out of necessity.
Yeah.
Well, you had other actors in mind for the part.
I did have other. Well, I knew I wanted to direct it because I had seen scripts that I wrote that got produced, whether they were animation or TV movies, that disappointed me. Like the script was something that I was proud of, and the finished product. So, how did that happen? But a lot of the times, as I've learned through process with this, is it's budget, it's production schedule, it's like all of these things tend to lead to like you have to cut things and you have to make these changes, but beyond that, I found what I was seeing that I had written was not on the screen. So I wanted to do that. I just got this bug up my butt. And then when it comes to acting, there are several actors that I wanted to play the part of Ray. George Clooney. There were a couple. I won't say their names, but they were good actors. One of them read the script and really loved it, but he was busy doing a TV series in San Francisco. This other actor got a job doing a movie, a gay movie, at the same time we were shooting. So, I kind of talked to James, and I talked to Jim Bullock, who was involved with the project at the time, and we just decided like I would do it. And these guys were kind of just supportive of it, like almost like we got your back, except at our age we don't say those things.
But you did. You all had each other's back. Yeah, and I couldn't see anybody else playing that part, so I'm glad that it ended up that way.
Well, it is exactly me.
Yeah, and directing it and producing it and doing craft. I mean, you did everything on the set. I watched you running around adjusting costumes, and I mean, it was really, truly.
It was a passion project, and I will say this too, that, well, I don't want to get ahead. We'll see what you ask.
Okay. How did each of you guys become involved?
Well, we started in the very beginning, and part of the whole thing was that Rich wanted to create something, like we all were trying to chase opportunities, and sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And he just said, I would love to write something that we could do together as friends and create something. That's kind of what kind of came out of that margarita night as well. It's like, all right, you write it, we'll act it. Let's see what happens. And I mean, and it took a while, but it happened.
Yeah. And I just to tweak on that a little bit more. I loved James and I loved Jim J, and I just wanted to give them both. My goal was to give them both a vehicle that they could get some great footage for their reel. That really was it. Like, I wanted to do that. And for myself, I wanted to have a good sample of my writing that was made. That was initially it, and then, became more.
Good things, more good things to come.
They actually had my part cast already.
Yeah.
Tom Berkland, and then I guess he got a job on Broadway. So cut to a day, I work at Trump's Bar in West Hollywood. Rich walks in with a buddy, and I notice him walk in. I mean, how can you not notice him? And I noticed he got his first round from the other bartender, so I was like, okay, next round I'm gonna get it for him. And so I got his Blue Moons, and I'm trying to spark up conversation, and I'm like, oh, what does your shirt say? And it said The Disappointments. He was wearing one of the t-shirts. I said, oh, are you part of the project? He's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm the writer and director. I'm like, wow, congratulations, that's really cool. He's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, you know Tom Berkland. I'm like, Tom Berkland, it's not ringing a bell. He's like, yeah, you did this scene with him where you're fighting on the beach and you this and that. And I was like, oh, one, I do know who Tom Berkland is. B, he knows who I am because he just referenced something I'm in. So I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, Tom I cast him for this part, and he can't do it anymore, so now we got to recast him. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, someone actually suggested you, that's why I'm here. And I was like, awesome. I was like, okay, send me the script. So he sent me the script. We met a week later for coffee, and we met again, and it just kind of happened organically. And then, yeah, I actually had to call you. I was home visiting my family. It was like weeks later. I was like, hey, did I get the part? Because like I feel like I got it, but you didn't tell me. He's like, oh yeah, I meant to tell you. So you got it. It's yours. Yeah.
Wow. Did you have to audition, or was it just the?
I did audition.
Yeah.
Steve and Rich put me on tape, and I did audition, but I was like, I didn't hear from them. They didn't tell me.
I was kind of pushed into doing some actors on tape for the role that I knew I wanted Trevor to do it. The part he's leaving out is that when I snuck into that, I didn't sneak into the bar. I went into the bar. I'm obviously of legal age. I didn't intend to talk to Trevor. My whole thing was to like stay in the shadows and scope him out and just watch how he moves, like see how he interacts with people. Because a big part of this project wasn't just can he act or can these people act, but how are they going to mix? Because this is a team effort,
Can we work 14 hours?
Can we exactly? Can we all pull together?
Yeah.
And are we all going to be invested on the same level? So I'm sitting in the back in the shadows, and I would go up to the other bartender. I was not going to go up to Trevor. I was consciously not going to go to Trevor. And I go up to the other bartender, and I think I got 2 rounds from him. And I went up to get I guess I drink a lot. I was about to get the 3rd round.
3 drinks.
And
I think I remember the second round.
but I was going up to get it, and as I went up to get it, the other bartender walked out, and Trevor looked over and came right over. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I was nervous to talk to him. I didn't want to tell him why I was there, and I kind of felt tongue-tied. And he broke the ice by
Talking about
because I'm being like super cool undercover, but I'm wearing a disappointment.
Subtle.
Yeah.
It's the kind of discovered at Schwab story, right?
So that I'm glad I wore the shirt because that really got the conversation going.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
This is a good shirt on you.
Yeah, still is.
And you, sir?
Mine was a phone call and I didn't have to audition. No, seriously, no. I was surprised to hear from Rich, so it was kind of, it was all.
It was a long time.
And I said, oh my gosh, really? So I remember I talked to John and I think I read it that night, and I probably called you the day, after. And then, I was also in some ways replacing Jim J. Bullock.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I was a little nervous because I didn't know am I supposed to act like him or something? I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So it was nerve-wracking. I was kind of finding my way through it in the very beginning.
Well, what's interesting about that is that I did originally write the part for Jim J. Bullock. Jim J has a known persona, which is like daffy and crazy, and I specifically wrote the part to be the most serious part in the show because I wanted to give Jim something different to do. So and when it didn't end up working with Jim for scheduling reasons, I actually cast somebody else in the part, and it was an act of desperation. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a good actor, but he was so wrong for the part, so I had to fire him. And I didn't fire him until we started talking.
Oh.
And then when you said yes, I fired him.
I was the cause of the.
Well, no, because the reason why I bring up this Jim J thing is because I didn't write it to what Jim's known strengths are. I wrote it to something else.
Okay.
As soon as you popped into my head, it was like the most organic thing. It just felt like this is meant to be, like, and I, without going into the story, Gedde and I had not spoken for 23 years, and literally he pops into my head as being the perfect person, and I just everything else just went away, and it's like I want to work with him, and I miss him as a friend, and so it just.
Well, the chemistry work is a long-term relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
Everybody
Oh,
brought
yeah.
that from the 3 of you, yeah.
Yeah.
And the new guy.
And we met, a week before we started shooting, if that.
I thought it was the same.
Was it, or it was like the
same
day
day?
or something?
I think we maybe rehearsed once all together.
Yeah.
Because you weren't at the table read, right?
No.
No, that was the other actor. Who is actually going to be in season 2, so it's all worked out.
There you go.
Is he playing me?
What was your most challenging moment in the show for each of you?
Someone else start that.
Or scene?
Let's go in alphabetical order. James.
I don't know if I had any challenges. No, I'm only kidding. I don't know. The part of it was, without even it being a scene or anything, it was the scheduling and the pacing. It was very fast, and we did not have permits, and it was like rogue filming. Yeah. It's like, okay, we're on a street, we got to do this in 5 minutes. Set it, do it, get in your car and go. No, it really was, and it was just like in one day we had maybe 4 locations setting up lights and everything. As we're finishing up something, the other group is going to the store to set up that. And it was just like, that was challenging. And then as a producer as well, setting things up, making sure props are in order, where they're supposed to be, helping Rich maintain like costume or whatever, and then getting in character and then doing what I do.
Because you also did all the food.
Yes, I did. I did
so
the food.
Two things James did. He worked with this guy John Robinson and did the food that Trevor destroys, eating by hand. Dwight does. Trevor doesn't do it. But so James helped and designed that. It was really on top of that. And you know, I've got to say this. Number one, thank you, NIFA. Number two, check out the show. Just look at an episode on YouTube. The color, it looks so good. This, I don't think, really showed you how beautiful the show is. And that's a big tribute to Jason's work as director of photography. It's bright, it's bold, it's beautiful. Like James. But the other thing James did was in that scene with Reese when he's trying to get Luke to buy the what's the name of the product?
Lab Solutions.
Oh, Lab Solutions, which is
it's not Lab Series, it's Lab Solutions.
And James took all of those bottles that said Lab Series and he doctored them. He brought in his steaming machine to like he did all this stuff, and he set up the counter, and like I was so relieved that didn't have to fall to our prop person.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyway, so.
It reminded me when we were dealing with Troubles, that memorial scene, there was construction going on next door.
Oh.
So we had to like stop every time, and it was like the worst timing because it was just like saws going off, and we're supposed to have like silence. I mean, you filmed
and
it.
I think we brought them a case of beer and asked them if they would please just give us a half hour.
Right.
That usually works.
But
It did for a little while, but they started up again.
And these two, the scene that they did by the jacuzzi when they were stoned, that entire time, that's when that was going on. And this is a tribute to Pete Trepke, who is our sound mix. Was it? No, sound. David, what was he?
Re-recording mixer.
Re-recording mixer. Thank you. I didn't see it. I'm a novice at this. He took that sound that was filled with electric saws and pounding, and those hammers with the
nail gun.
Yeah, nail gun. These boots are just for looks. He took all of that out. I mean, you didn't hear a thing, and I promise you, you couldn't hear anything. And the only reason why we got the sound is because everybody was mic'd. They all had lavs on, lavs. Yeah. Anyway, Gedde.
Yes.
Tell me, what was your worst experience?
My worst experience.
What was your most challenging?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that night I actually saw that scene where I couldn't remember my lines.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And we were at the patio, and I kept thinking, well, this is going to be a long night. That's all I kept saying.
It was actually really funny.
You thought it was, but I thought it was.
No, I mean, I felt for you. I felt for you, but at the same time, like, you know, the clock is going, and I'm still thinking it's funny. Like, I wasn't like going, oh my God, we're running out of time.
Which I appreciated, because I got through it.
And I knew you were going to get it, and I knew that. So I knew enough about editing that we would get it together. But you actually you had takes that were perfect.
Okay.
But there was definitely it's in the book. We'll get that up at some point.
I think the biggest challenge for me in this was to trust myself. Really serious, just as an actor, to figure out, you know, just calm down. It's okay. You know, trust what everybody's doing.
Did the short shooting schedule or anything affect that?
No. Actually, I really love long. I actually really love being on a set. So it's kind of like it's sort of like, why not? Where else are you going to be, right? You know, I mean, it's like,
somewhere where you get paid.
Yeah. Well, you got paid.
That's somewhere else to be.
No,
just kidding, Rich.
The long hours, really, I just really enjoyed being there, and I think that just is because it was enjoyable. So I think it would have been different if it was a real intense.
You started it, Steve, by saying, you know, what the set was like, what the people are like, and that's why I think, even though the hours were really long, I mean, 13-hour days sometimes, we just all kind of, no matter what role you were in, we all just kind of loved each other, and we all kind of just.
That was the feeling I got, and everything was so professional, and your call times, and you preparing actors for what's coming up, and shooting it, and it was top notch. I mean, I was probably the 5 or 6 hours, but it was just a blast, and your directing is just so much fun, and you really sit down with each actor and talk about the scene, and you would never know that it was a rush for my scene anyway, for sure. And I had you to work with.
Well, and I have to say, these guys, the scene that they did, I was working on another scene. I think I was in it, and they had downtime, and they were sitting in. This is one of the things that's fun about filming. The scene James is in with Barb, when she tells him that he's not getting the job being the director of the cruise line, that was the back of my chiropractor's office. The front of my chiropractor's office is where Gedde comes out and tries to get the cigarette. The window that they go to break into with the B is the side of my casting director's office. Inside where we did the scene with the two of them, the casting director's office, that's inside my chiropractor's office. And then the scene where he was doing the learning that he has anal cancer, that was also inside the chiropractor's office. So just that whole.
Did you do a car scene too in that block?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So just the. It was.
You saw that building.
We would get a location, and the locations were all from friends who said, "Yeah, okay, you can use my house," having no idea what the hell they're getting into. We would get a location, and we go, "Okay, how many times can we use this? How many scenes can we use this for? How many different locations can we make this?" James, when Ray walks into that park, and James is on the phone in front of the Glassell Park sign that's backwards. We snuck into Glassell Park and got that. So I walk into frame, I see him, and I walk out of frame, and then I walk up to Gedde at the picnic table. That's actually, it was in James's backyard. That wasn't the park. But it's kind of, perfect. You just, you don't know. So.
Well, now they do.
Now they do.
Oh, shit.
Right. What's each of your favorite moments in the scene, or best connection, or what did you just think is the best part?
I don't know.
Let's ask Trevor.
It was fun shooting the memorial scene because everyone was there.
I was gonna say that.
It's a lot of energy, and it's like probably the most stressful because you're like probably for Rich because he's juggling all of like what could go wrong, but. It was also our last day of filming,
right.
So it was kind of bittersweet. We're all just happy to be there. It was fun. It was good.
It was. It had
we got
a
all
ton
the
of
hard
energy.
scenes out of the way. I mean, although that was a difficult scene you guys had up there, but I was just putting my pants on, so.
Or taking them off.
Nice.
Well, and that we were running out of light.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we got to finish this in 3 minutes.
And that's one of those things where I look at it and I won't point to any moments. I just want people to enjoy it. But for me personally, there are so many shots we didn't get because of time that would have elevated the project and elevated the humor. But literally, you just have to pick, okay, what are the main shots that you're going to get? Because you don't have the time to get this person's reaction shot and that person's reaction shot. Or, when Ray points to something about the people at the party, we don't see the people at the party because we didn't have time in that day when we were shooting 13 pages to get those people. We had to stick to the core shots, and then if we had extra time, the luxury of adding other shots that would fill out the scene.
When idealistically we wanted 50 people there, and I think we had 13, 12 that we were able to cheat.
No, it was more than that. It was more than that, but
You need CGI then,
cardboard cutouts.
Well, I know you had it was a challenge getting it edited and all that. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, we found our editor. We had an editor, and he moved to New York, which sucked. So then we ended up doing a search through Facebook, their post-production page, and Steve was kind of in charge of that. I was working with him, obviously, because I would have to like who I was going to work with. And we found Sassy, and when I went in and met with her, I said, one of the things I want to be able to do is sit down with you. She works at home. She had 2 big computer screens. I said, I want to be able to sit down with you, not every day of the week, but to sit down and see some stuff and I wanted to see what the footage looked like because I hadn't seen any of the footage. And she said, absolutely, no, I'd love to work with you that way. And then 3 days later, we're locked down. So I couldn't go to her house. I couldn't see it. So all I was able to do with her, we Zoomed constantly. She would share her screen and I would see what she was editing. And that's what the process was. So I would see what she was editing, then she would send it to me, and then I would give her notes, and then she would make changes, and it was back and forth. And initially it went pretty quickly, but then as she got busier, because again, this is somebody who she was getting paid, but not her worth or her normal pay. So she would have to take jobs as they came up, which
Right.
It's the fact when you have a production that's as low budget as we were, that we're going to be the second or third job in somebody's life. So it, I won't say it dragged on. It took as long as it needed to take. I will say one of my favorite, the bright spot of post for me, besides learning about editing, and it was a full-on education, was I knew nothing about music, to the point where, I was like, I don't even know if I want music in this, like literally. How stupid is that?
It was phenomenal.
Well, and so David Frank Long, he had worked on the new 40, and we had started to become friends, and I loved what he had done with that, and I wanted him to do the music when I realized we needed music, and we had this great conversation, and we didn't have a lot of money, and I said, this is what we have, and he's like, I really like this project, I'll do it. And he taught me so much. David knows. I would say to him, I don't know how to describe what I want, and I would describe it kind of in emotions rather than actual music, and he got what I was saying every time. I would have some notes for him, some of the stuff that he would compose, and we would go back and forth on it. Sometimes he would explain to me why something works when I didn't think it did, and then I'd be like, oh, you're right, it works. So that was, again, this whole process for me has been funded by Indiegogo and people contributing. It's basically been my NIFA, it was my film school.
Right.
I hate to say